East Coast insights talk their truth. Big city questions searching for proof. Stories from the ground, from the booth to the roof. East Coast insights, right here with you. East Coast insights talk that truth. Big city questions searching for proof.
What is up, everybody? How you doing? Kenji Shimada here today. Not Tuesday. It is a beautiful Thursday today. Sun is out. Everything is popping. It's all going down. First and foremost, thank you so much for joining me. Second of all, sorry it didn't work out on Tuesday. Technical difficulties, but I think it was all divine. There's a few things that I wanted to get in order properly for today's show. It's a bit of a special show. Got a bit of a show announcement that I'm going to make. There's a few things. First and foremost, my guest today is Dr. Chalice Patterson, the wonderful Dr. Chalice Patterson, and also my beautiful partner, Chalice Patterson, who is going to be talking about women's health, holistic health, but the larger spectrum of what's going on inside of, health at the moment, what's hot, what's goss, what's not. And, there are things out there that I'm sure are trends that are they good things? Are they trends? Does it take us away from our intuition, who we are, and health at a deeper level? And we're going to sort of deep dive into these conversations. So we're going to have a great chat there. So if you don't want to hear my rambles, I'm going to chat for about 10 minutes just to give a bit of context in this next pivot of this show. Tune in 10 minutes to listen to Dr. Chalice Patterson. So before I go into the show update, I'm just going to quickly jump into a few community updates first, and then we'll go from there. So first and foremost, tonight we've got the Gold Coast Startup Ecosystem Drinks happening at the Precinct Brewery. I think maybe there's tickets left, not too sure, but it's hosted by Cohort Innovation Space and the guys at Tribe Global Ventures. So I'll be there tonight. Looking forward to being there. Sunrise, like I said, it's happening end of April. That's just one of the ones I'm checking out as well. And I've got my community coffee and co-work tomorrow happening for those that might be interested out at Burleigh. I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to be there from 10 till 1. I'll be just getting some work done. Come in, drop in, say, hey, have a coffee. It's going to be Llamas to the Sky at Burleigh. Nice little space there, indoor, outdoor area. So feel free to come join me. My Luma links and everything will be inside the show notes here. And yeah, I've also got my Catalyst event page inside of the Luma, the custom event calendar that I'm just trying to keep up with ecosystem events. I'm going to keep adding to it. If anybody else wants to add to it, more than welcome, please feel free. But apart from that, that is the super simple high level of what's going on inside of obviously my sphere of the community. There's lots more going on. So for everyone out there, please, if you've got events coming up, if there's things on your plate, please share them to me. I'd love to share as a bit of a news desk here as well. But today, a bit of a different setup. I'm at the wonderful Auto Guru. The team here has been kind enough for me to let me use their space and deck it out, use it as I move forward. I won't be here every week, but just so you see this location, it is Auto Guru. What's up at Broad Beach? Now, update. There has been East Coast Insights, as a track was before. I just had to put it on for one last time. East Coast Insights has been great. I just chose a name to get started with it, what's going on, and inside of just community updates that's happening. And I had a wonderful conversation with Pauline Fatui at ACS Labs, who's also going to have something tech going on. They're going to start launching tickets, I think, August. Check it out. But she really uttered a few very kind, powerful, impactful words to me about, what's going on in the world right now, what's going on inside of business, conversations, who we are, what we are doing right now. And I always had something sitting in the background for me of what I wanted to bring, but it was really personal to me. It was a personal space, and I thought maybe that's a project for later. And Pauline was great enough, and I can tell because she mentors a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders. I could tell she was, she knows how to get people to push past their comfort zone. She said, Kenji, I don't know if you have time right now, in this day and age, and especially in this point in humanity right now where things are moving so quickly, to not double down on who you are, what your message is. And so it really gave me food for thought. And, and this is full circle even to my business structures, right? In terms of if I'm a brand strategist and I'm passionate about brand, and what I preach about brand is you kind of got to put your heart on your sleeve, right? You got to be willing to be vulnerable and share a vulnerable truth to the world, because that's where your power lies, is in your unique, authentic self. That's what is your unique selling proposition. That is your unique viewpoint, is whatever the story is that brought you here and the story that's taking you into the future. Right. And so I could tell I was going to have to, practice what I preach, put it out there. And also, East Coast Insights, I loved it. Jared Campbell, thank you so much for the track. It was almost a reason that I wasn't going to pivot the show, because I love that track so much. And you know what? I'm still going to bump that track out in Spotify. I'm going to still continue with that one. But sunk cost bias is a real thing. Sometimes we can get so caught up in, I've done it for so long, hence I must continue it. But I'm in the position where, like, if you're going to pivot, right? Share a bit of context. What are we doing here? So a few things that I'm just trying to make sure that I practice what I preach and put it out there. It is a bit nerve-wracking for me. It does make me feel a little bit vulnerable, but I think the best conversations are going to come from there. And it already has started to happen as I've opened this up. So without further ado, from here on out today, the show is going to be pivoting to what is the 1,000-year plan. Think bigger than big, live fully today. So this is going to be the name of the show, and what the show is going to be talking about is the bigger picture. Like, what are we really doing here as humanity? Like, and I know 1,000 years, we're not going to see 1,000 years into the future, but right now is a pivotal point of humanity, of what's happening with technology. Things are moving really quick. And I think everyone's going to ask the existential question, well, what do I do as a human? Right. And I think the great companies at the moment that are using a lot of AI and a lot of tech, and even here at Auto Guru, Going Fleet Guru, is saying these questions of what are we doing? But it's almost as if it's a reminder of who we are as people and the critical role that we play in this next step of the future. And 1,000 years, dude, this is going to be no time. And things take time to implement. And I truly believe that we're at a point where we need to start cognitively thinking about what are the foundations we set for the next phase that we're about to step into. And you can already hear it, these are big questions, these are really personal themes for me that really sort of put me on the edge of my seat, and it challenges me to bring these up. But I don't think I could not think about these questions on every single day of my life, and how it sort of relates to business and what's going on. I think, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a beautiful, I guess, image, or it's an awesome representation of what I'm trying to get at with all of these conversations, because you need to sort of, before we sort of go all the way out into the, self-actualization pathways, we really need to be thinking about what's at the ground level, right? And I was having a conversation with a friend about this yesterday, is that, like, sure, self-actualization sits at the top of the pyramid, and those are where those existential questions live. But underneath these, if we don't have these foundational elements of ourselves met, these psychological base needs, safety and security of our health, our environment, prosperity, family, social abilities, the belonging to community, right? Because we can't just skip these beautiful foundations, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect for yourself, and the need to be a unique individual, and then towards a journey of self-actualization. And this is pretty much primarily what the foundation of 1,000-year plan will be, is talking into all of these areas, right? So today we're going to be talking into the health element of it all, holistic health, what's going on, like where do we have to go back to? Like, where has maybe health skewed to a far degree, where we're getting too caught up in the detail and missing the bigger picture, or missing a simple picture? Business and entrepreneurship, to me, it's a place where people are trying to bring value. And I love this. I was going on the tech walks, and someone said, back in the .com days, you could have put .com behind it and you would have got funding, right? But now talking more to people that are in VC, private equity, founders that are trying to raise capital, these people are just looking for real value. Is it true value? Is it getting above the noise? Is it just a hype campaign, or is it truly something tangible in this world? And I think with so much noise, we're having to cut through it all and get more and more to the point of what is value, true value, as the capacity to make anything becomes quicker and quicker. Anyone can make shit, anyone can make like stuff that is novel. There's a lot of novel things out there. Will that stand the test of time? Who knows? Times will change, but it's constantly now putting us to the point of what is valuable and what will I spend my time achieving? And even financially, if you're stuck in a financial, wheel and you're just making ends meet, it's going to be very hard to not just ask the questions, but give time to be with those questions. And I think this is where, business is critical to me. The financial structure, I don't want to be stepping away from it. I don't want to be overstepping foundational elements, because if you don't have your finances in order, if you don't have your business or your career pathway or how you are getting these needs met, and we're going to talk about this more and more with what's going on inside of the economy, the financial sector, what's coming with inflation, interest rates, how are we looking at these problems? Because if we don't look at these problems, and next week I'm going to have an awesome AI roundtable chat. And so we're going to get into what are the real tools, like what's helping, what's not, and what are some of these people working on big problems using, and what do they find valuable? Because if it's not valuable, if it's not helping to move you through this structure, what are we actually doing? What is value? And to me, the value lives at that self-actualization pathway of finding my purpose, finding my peace, finding my people, finding my community, finding the things that truly bring value to me. And I think I've never been a billionaire, nor a multi-millionaire, but hearing from the people that have been, and they've lived, the high echelons of material life, everything you can have, cars, houses, things that you could buy. And to find out these people still come back and say, what am I doing? This is maybe not the most fulfilling path. And so I think it full circles us back to our purpose. What is our purpose? What is the path here? And this is why it's important for 1,000-year plan for me to say, cool, how do we think bigger than big, but live fully today, right? How are we making sure that we've got those fundamental elements in place, dreaming big and dreaming together, but then also making sure that we live today, because we only have a day in the ironic sense of it all. And that's kind of it. That's the heartfelt mic drop. That's my feels right there. That's all that really matters to me. That'll be the questions I ask every single day. That's everything that aligns to my wholehearted purpose of being here as a human being, as I try and move towards a deeper, fulfilling place in my life. And so hopefully, if anyone sees this, whoever sees this, I'll share some more clips about this, but this is it. This is Kenji's World. This is the 1,000-year plan. This is what's in my mind. And the beauty of this frame has already shown me that I get to have really rich conversations with people that are really thinking outside the box. And the guests that I'll bring onto the show will be those people. And I'm already noticing that they are the people that see it. They're the people at the tip of the sword. They're the people that are at the frontiers of their game. And people say first world problems. Sometimes it's a first world problem. We shouldn't whinge or deal with it or whatever. I'm a big believer first world problems is a damn real problem. People that are not here at the point where like, cool, my house is good, my food is good, I'm all set. The material needs of those baseline structures of the pyramid are set. Then there's a new set of problems that arise. Then there's a new frontier that you must face. And until you get to that problem, you're not going to know how to tackle it. So the people that are there, I commend you, because I was not brought up in the hood. I was not a slum kid. I didn't go from rags to riches. I was from middle class to middle class, Chapel Hill, Brisbane, watching TV when I was a kid, school, living a very regular life. But, life was good for me, right? Everything was sorted. My father had a good job. Mum was, had a good job. We all sort of were looked after. It wasn't like the craziest riches, but we were really nice. But from this point, cool, like all these foundational things are good. What do we do? And sometimes the people that have been in rags have the crazy drive, and sometimes, like we got to find our drive, right? We got to put ourselves into discomfort. We have to put ourselves into challenging situations, because now it has to be a conscious effort. Because when you're in the hard places, the environment has got that pressure on you to sort of get out of there. When those environmental pressures, and the environmental pressures are still here, right? Like we're talking about with inflation and with interest rates and what's going on with, the global agendas. Like there's all these stories that are racking around, even if they're not going to come to fruition. The fact that these stories, the wars going out there, it's not our home. Still our planet though. Still my home. Like the world is becoming smaller as we become more connected and we talk to each other more. That's still my home, just a further away place, right? There's still my people on this earth. And so, yeah, I think, but what do we do here to live today? What are the reverberations of our thoughts and our minds? Like how do we change that to change the physical reality? Because, as humanity, we still live at this point where we think we create energy from matter, right? Fossil fuels and all this sort of stuff. Whereas I truly believe the universe creates matter from energy. So that's a foundational principle. And I'm a mind over matter kind of guy, just through and through. I just am. And so I believe you change the internal story, you change the narrative that lives within the mind, because the narrative constantly exudes and is brought into fruition through action. How do we change the story? What is the dream that we dream? And that's it. That is the 1,000-year plan. Like I said, I will rattle on more about it as we go along. The guests that I bring on will talk into all these things for me. I'm so excited of who's going to be coming onto the show moving into the future. Thank you so much to Pauline. Thank you so much to people that have already been watching. And just having that love and support of community has been absolutely foundational for me. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining me and hearing my rant. And now, my guest for today, I have got Dr. Chalice Patterson, the beautiful and wonderful, who is becoming more and more the desired and sought after doctor here on the Gold Coast, as her holistic well-being, her, care factor for people's true well-being, not just physical, sits at the core of her. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. I loved what you just said as well about the basically like flipping the paradigm between the matter and the field. And this is actually really timely because I had this conversation with a patient this week about the field creates the matter, and we're talking about very real health things for her. But we know that there's a lot of, psychological trauma that's happened in the background, and it's the basis of the field of medicine, also known as psychoneuroimmunology, of just like when we change the field, that the matter reorganizes. It's like that quantum biology space that we're moving into. So I think it's a very exciting time to be in health. It's a challenging time, but it's an exciting time.
Yeah, you've touched on a huge thing there, but is that currently what's coming into the forefront? I know that's sort of been there for your personal beliefs, but in terms of the medical world right now, like I think it gets to the point that it's hard to ignore anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, medicine is so broad, and I guess it seems to be that there's like a public awareness within the community and the collective that people are wanting more holistic care, and they're not simply wanting like pharmaceutical prescriptions and kind of what we might consider like traditional Western medicine. But at the same time, recognizing that that absolutely has a place. And I kind of like to break it down into, you know, when I talk to patients, it's like, well, there's like that medical part. Like, we have to make sure that you don't have a physical disease that you need medication for, or you need surgery for. And my friend, Dr. Anthea Todd, talks about this as well. This is, you know, to borrow some of her words, it's like the medical, the functional, and the emotional and energetic. So if we look at the medical and it's all okay, you don't have a disease, you don't need medication, you don't need surgery, then we start to look at this functional medicine place. And this has really exploded, like in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, let's say. And now everyone's very much like cognizant of wellness and really wanting to talk about longevity and all of that exciting stuff. And that's, I think all of that lives in this like functional place of like, well, what's your nutrition? What's your hydration, sleep quality, sleep timing, circadian biology, circadian alignment, movement, nervous system regulation, and that's all fairly functional. And then it crosses over into emotional and energetic. Because if you're hitting all of those things and you're still having an issue, then maybe there's something underlying in the field, in the subconscious, that actually needs addressing from a emotional or a psychological level.
Yeah, and it's we were talking about it the other day, but you know, indigenous medicines, you know, they talk about they'll, you know, if someone has an ailment, you know, sure, that like you said, broken bone or something like that, but if it's something more, they go to the source. They're like, I need to fix this person's spirit, and even if you're not comfortable language, spirit, it's just like your deeper psyche, right? The things that are going on, because they probably understood that that was the baseline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very beautiful that now we're sort of returning to more of that indigenous and innate wisdom that has been held in, you know, the traditional practices of First Nations people, whether that's in Australia or around the world. And the thing is, when you look around the world at all of the indigenous practices, whether it's like Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine or Australian indigenous practices, like everywhere, it all correlates. And you've got people that are living very far apart that are actually coming to the same conclusions. And, you know, back in those times as well, it's not like those people were communicating like via text or email. It's like everyone was kind of separate in their communities, but coming to these same conclusions. So it's like, there must be something here.
And then you're starting to see that, because you said that, you know, more people are shifting in their, you know, their awareness of health in the larger scheme of things. Are you starting to notice that in your patients as well, that they don't just seek, you know, like some people still want just the topical, you know, just let me get on with my day, versus the people that are like, what sits at the core of this for me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because I see a skewed population, like because I attract a certain type of patient to me, because I'm not like a walk-in GP, an acute care GP. I'm someone that you come to when you kind of need more specialized advice and you need someone who's going to take time and look at all the factors. So I may be skewed in seeing you know, a lot of those patients these days who really seek that comprehensive whole person approach. But to, you know, cast my mind back through like GP training when I was like in standard GP practices and, you know, bulk billing practices and stuff like that, still like a lot of the time, like it could be someone like has high blood pressure. And so it's like, okay, so, you know, now we have to discuss antihypertensive medication. And they're like, well, I don't really want to take medication. And, you know, it's like very, not to say normal, but just, you know, like everyday people in the community. And they're still like, I don't really want to take a drug. So what else can we do? And then it's like, okay, well, now we have to have a longer conversation about the impact of your environment or your lifestyle factors and what that actually can do for your blood pressure. So I think all in all, like people really are seeking that more. And I still use medication sometimes in a targeted way, but it's definitely, I think it's like recognizing, like both me and also the patients recognizing like medication is addressing a symptom. And so we can medicate the symptom to help us whilst we're kind of looking at the root cause. but so many things are like, so many things share root cause origin, I would say.
Yeah, and like, what's the biggest challenges for people that want to overcome or heal at a core level, but like you said, it's a very root cause issue, which is tied to a pretty personal place, right? You have to have some pretty strong conversations there.
Yes. And I also feel like it's getting a little bit harder because we as a society are living in a way that is increasingly out of alignment with a way that healthy humans live. And we have to look back at evolutionary biology to recognize that, of like, well, humans have existed on this earth for however long, hundreds of thousands of years, and for the most part they've thrived. And so it's really only in like the last kind of like 100 years or so that we're really seeing this like explosion in particularly like chronic diseases. And so it's like, well, why are we all getting sicker? Because the stats are really quite starkly obvious. And I do think that it's increasingly challenging for people because we live in a society that is increasingly dysregulated and creates disconnect from the things that ultimately are health-giving and life-giving.
Yeah, what are those foundational things, I guess, that create the disconnect, but also, brings you back, that's easily missed?
Well, I think like life is so busy, right? So we're all kind of feeling stretched, but also
Busy?
pushed. we're also busy. We've got like and that's just, we live in this very technological age, and part of that is beautiful because it brings so much like revolution of way of doing things and new information, and people can access all this information, and that's really cool. But we also have to be mindful of then like, well, what is it like for your brain, which like if we talk about your nervous system, that's your brain, your spinal cord, and all of your peripheral nerves that innervate every single one of your cells in your body. How is your nervous system processing all of this information that you're coming into contact with every day? So it's like not just the people that maybe you interact with in your workplace or your home life, but it's the amount of like notifications that come through, like emails, Instagram, other social media platforms. Like maybe you've got multiple emails, and like the number of apps are increasing on our phone. It's like so much sensory information to process. And again, from an evolutionary biology perspective, like our brains were never meant to process that much information. Like we're so connected, and we've got like, newsreels going all the time, giving us like updates, and like you can literally, you can frazzle your brain quite easily.
Well, you just constantly stimulated, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were never meant to live in a state of constant stimulation of the nervous system. Because if you like, just broadly speaking, we know about like fight or flight, that's like sympathetic activation of the nervous system, which is an important state. Like we need that. That's what helps us move about the world and get things done. But then we were always meant to toggle off, into parasympathetic activation, which is our rest, digest, receive, repair states. And it's like stress on, stress off, stress on, stress off. But now we're kind of just living with like stress on, stress on, stress on, and that's like really depleting.
Yeah, and I liked it was a reminder for me. Like I intellectually, understand and know these things that I should be doing, but I saw Andrew Huberman thing came up, and he's like, if you took a race, like a rest break, and you didn't do quote boring things, it was probably not rest.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because now we have this theory, polyvagal theory as well, which is kind of diving more into that nervous system of like, okay, so there's the sympathetic activation. We know that that's like fight or flight, but getting things done, a very active state. And then there's this theory around having two sets of two sets of vagus nerve state, dorsal vagal and ventral vagal. And ventral vagal, I always get these mixed up, so I hope I'm speaking into this properly, but ventral vagal is that true rest, digest, feeling really calm. That's where our creative energy comes from. That's where our body actually goes into repair mode as well, because you can't exist like on a cellular level. Your cells can't exist in survival and repair at the same time. It has to make a choice which one. So there's that ventral vagal, which is where we want to hang out when we're in our rest mode. But there's also dorsal vagal, and that's kind of like an extreme state that the nervous system goes into like shutdown, because we've been in the sympathetic state for so long, and suddenly it's like a collapse.
Right. Okay.
And this is like it manifests as like functional freeze. So if you've ever finished a long day of work, or you've like you've got young kids that you've had to get into bed, and like everything's just like crazy, and it gets to like 9 o'clock at night, and you like collapse and feel like as if you can't do anything except maybe scroll on your phone like mindlessly. That's what a functional freeze looks like decision fatigue, can't do anything that is like actually functional.
And I like what you said about, obviously talking at home about all these things, but I like what you said about when you're, because I can find myself scrolling sometimes as well. And I know it's not restful, but you said it's almost like the mind is trying to claim back its time, right? It's like, I've been so busy today.
Yeah.
I deserve to just claim back a moment for me to do me, when this is just back to stimulation. Because when you go, and this is just speaking from my experience, but it's like sometimes when I go from, I guess, a high stimulated to then I just try to go to rest, to turn off, there's this moment I'm like, I should be doing something. And if I can't get through that first 5-10 minutes of erraticness, I'll just find another, quote, stimulating activity.
Yes. And this is actually a psychological phenomenon. I forget the name for it, but it's like, it's to do with like when we're so busy in the day with all the tasks that life requires of us and our job and whatever it is. And when we don't feel like we've like had a sense of agency, and maybe haven't been able to uphold our appropriate boundaries that we would like as well in the day. And then it gets to that time of, later night. And ideally we should be trying to prioritize physical rest, aka sleep. But there's some psychological phenomenon where it's like a rebellion, where it's like, this is the only time in the day that I get for me, and I'm going to choose what I want to do. And I choose scrolling. And it doesn't make us feel rested. And then ultimately it makes us feel a bit worse psychologically as well. But yeah, it's a very known psychological phenomenon.
Would you also, because I know that it's like tapping into those dopamine things, because it's, it's just getting those hits, but it's also the mind just trying to do something fun, right? But
Exactly.
it's a short fun. It's easily accessible fun. It's not a fun that I had to go somewhere to do.
Yeah. And it's an instant gratification, right? Like you don't have to try very hard for it to be like fun or like a dopamine hit. So your brain's like, oh, cool. It's like junk food.
And so,
junk food for the brain.
And so what do you say to people that obviously, like it's easy to sort of, even for myself, it's not the right thing to do. Sometimes you find yourself in it. Like, what are some of these tips, tricks, ways to, either create a process for your life, a system, or just some habit that can help to break this or create new ones?
Well, I think obviously phones and screens are a part of our life. Technology is a part of our lives. Like that's not going away. So it's like, how do we develop a relationship where we're using it intentionally instead of succumbing to like just being out of control? Yeah, passively consuming. And, if you're going to scroll, it's like really make a conscious decision that you're like, it's like, if you're going to eat like a, I don't know, chocolate bar or something, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to have a Kit Kat, and I'm like making a conscious decision to have that. Then same, like, I don't recommend you eat a Kit Kat every day for breakfast, but if you're going to have it, then, same with scrolling. It's like, make that intentional where you're like, I'm going to allow myself half an hour to scroll, and maybe set a timer. And when that timer goes off, this is the challenging part, but really honor the boundary for yourself to be like, that time is over and now I need to go outside.
Yep.
And I would say the other thing is like, if you're drawn to trying to go on your phone or your devices or watch TV or whatever, it's like, ask yourself, have I been outside? Have I seen natural sunlight? Have I felt the air on my skin? And if the answer is no, then you probably need to do that first, because that's going to be a way better dopamine hit for your brain.
Yeah, those boundaries. Hey, it's the funny thing, isn't it? Like we seek freedom as people, but true freedom comes from having boundaries. Like we actually seek freedom within the framework that we have, because true freedom then it just goes crazy. It's the whole YOLO, I'll do whatever I want, there's no tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is, it's like the 1,000-year plan. And it's like, yeah, we're thinking 1,000 years time, but you have to live today, but you kind of have to think about tomorrow as well.
Yeah, that's the duality.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful quote from Gabrielle Roth, who is the founder and creator of 5 Rhythms, which is a beautiful somatic dance practice. And Gabrielle Roth's quote is, "Do you have the discipline to be a free spirit?" Because it does take discipline.
Yeah, for sure. And so, like, I'm gonna pivot into, we're talking about technology, and you're in the medical world right now. We love to sort of share about innovation here that's helpful, not helpful, just adding to noise. What's just in your spheres at the moment? What's coming into your radar with a lot of the health tech? Obviously, AI is here. I know Heidi is this big one at the moment that's helping doctors. But what's in your world right now that you find helpful, not so helpful?
Yeah, I mean, Heidi is great in terms of AI that I personally am using, and I know a lot of doctors are using. Like at the end of last year, 40% of like GPs, this was a poll done through RACGP, 40% of GPs at the end of last year were using it. That number's probably even higher now. And I think for us trying to do our job and like obviously having like time pressures, like anyone, being able to take high quality notes and the importance of documentation in medicine is really, really high. But high quality notes without compromising on actually listening to the patient and like being present with them is really huge. So Heidi, as the AI scribe, has been really wonderful for that. And I like that they're an Australian company as well. So that's cool. And they're one of the first. But from a patient point of view, like I know so many people are, really excited about tech. And I guess the wearables is like a really big one for a lot of people. Like Aura Ring is probably the OG for high quality wearables. And they've been around for a long time, but they're like getting really widely utilized now. There's, other versions as well that have come out onto the market, but I would say that their quality is pretty unmatched. And ultimately, I think with wearables, it's like, there's a tendency to get more data and to be like overwhelmed with numbers and just get into the nitty gritty and not really like miss the whole picture, like miss, what's that saying, forest for the trees. But I think if you've got a wearable, you can really use it to be intentional and to start to understand your biology better and to see the influence of certain things, because like those wearables have got like heart rate variability. And this is a direct measure of like how healthy you are. So you want high heart rate variability. When our heart rate variability drops, that's usually when we're really stressed or sick. And so if you're getting those readings, you can actually see, oh, I didn't sleep well and my heart rate variability dropped. Or like I drank like 6 beers last night and my heart rate variability tanked. And so, using that information to be intentional about like, what are the factors that actually influence my body?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And do you find like, because I know there's a lot of things out there that you can go down into the details with testing things, right? I know like more and more things are coming out, which I'm sure are fantastic for certain things. Do you also see, I'll talk a lot about it down in my personal view of like missing the mark sometimes, right? Like you can get all the knowledge, you can get all the things, but in the end, how do you see it? Like, what's your intuition about it?
For sure. Yeah, I think as well that like there's so much testing that is available now. There's comprehensive blood tests, there's urine tests, there's imaging, there's also functional tests. And like sometimes having that information is not better because if you don't know how to interpret the information, then that's like, what are you doing with it? And also if that information, if it's supporting you to connect to your body, then yeah, that's awesome. But if you're getting bogged down by having perfect numbers and not actually thinking about how you're feeling and what symptoms are present, perhaps, then that's when I think it's missed the mark. So like, just a small example of this is like I see a lot of women in perimenopause, and I feel very grateful to help those women through that transition time, and we see really good results. And a lot of women ask me like, okay, so should I get my hormones checked? And the thing for me when I sit with those women is like about taking a comprehensive history and being like, how are you feeling in your body? What symptoms are you experiencing? And we have like a lot of questions we run through. And I'll say, yeah, we'll get a hormone check. But if those numbers look good on that screen, that is not discounting what you just told me and that your symptoms are very real. It's actually just telling me that what's happening at the tissue level is different to what is being seen on that snapshot of a serum blood test at that time. So yeah, I think we just have to be like mindful that testing can be helpful, but don't get so lost in it that you're actually discounting how you actually feel.
Yeah, and I think this is like a big thing that, I'm a big believer of. And I felt like the differentiation between analog and digital was like a nice way of a distinction of just analog, your biology, nature, real world, and then there's digital, the tech. Like, yeah, they don't have to be, mutually exclusive. They can definitely work
Yeah.
together, but one shouldn't trump the other,
For
right?
sure. Everything in totality, like we need to find the balance point, I think, because when we try to go too far into any extreme without the other, that's where you get lost. So I think it's always about finding the balance point. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of people are chronically stressed these days. And so like I think a really good utilization of tech in my industry is like something which is coming up more and more is like vagus nerve stimulation, which it is an external tech that helps you to increase your own internal vagus nerve tone. The vagus nerve is what controls the parasympathetic nervous system. It's our longest cranial nerve. It starts in our head and it goes all the way down into our pelvis, and it goes over your heart and like your lungs, and it innervates your diaphragm, and it goes innervates part of your digestive tract and down into the pelvis. So it's a really important nerve.
Wow.
And when we can actually have good vagal tone, we know that we are healthier and the body is in that innate state of healing where repair is possible at a cellular level.
Mhm.
So if you're actually never going into that parasympathetic, then, this is when we're getting like DNA damage accumulating and cells aren't able to repair. You're getting misfolded proteins, all of these things that eventually create disease. So this is to, circle back, like that tech is potentially a helpful thing for a lot of people to, it's not going to do the whole job, but it's to help you get a little bit more bandwidth so that you can actually go, oh, I have been chronically stressed. And now this device or, consistent use is like helping me to drop into that other nervous system state that allows my body to do that important healing work.
And we've sort of talked into there's we're talking to it more later, but like there's like pulse TMF machines as well these days that are starting to work on that field level as well, right?
Yeah, pulse TMF is a really interesting one because it was developed by NASA, I think in like the 70s, and it was initially to try to help their astronauts like not lose bone density whilst they were in space, because without gravity forces, that's a really big problem. Amongst other things, there's also accelerated aging from being out in that level of, I don't fully understand it, but the radioactive field or our Earth's magnetic field protects us a bit. Anyway, the pulsed EMF, it has been around for decades, and I haven't dived into the research so much with it, but I believe that there is research supporting the healing of bone, particularly in like cases where there was like non-union of fractures or like needing bone grafts. And so pulsed EMF has been shown to support like osteoblast activity, which are the little cells that actually create or lay down bone. And so, this is like energy medicine, frequency medicine. It's all very exciting. And it's like, I think that's going to be the next field that we really are looking into.
Exciting times, leaps and bounds. Like you said, technology, you just got to stay in touch with your body as well. But with some very interesting stuff, there could be some cool revelations. So I want to be mindful of time today as well. For the people out there that are listening, any words of wisdoms, things that are in your sphere right now that you just try and remind yourself of daily, what would you share?
Well, all the tech aside, I think it's really important to acknowledge that the original tech is the most powerful and impactful for our health. And that tech is nature and things like sunlight. And, to touch upon the sunlight in a sort of semi-brief way, there was a paper that came out at the end of 2025, November 2025, and it was actually a position statement from the American Heart Association in a journal called Circulation. And it was basically talking about the role of circadian health in cardiometabolic health and disease risk. And so this was like, I consider this a landmark paper because this is basically like mainstream cardiology endorsing that circadian biology not only exists, but is super impactful. And that it's not just about like seeing the sun and moving your body and eating nutritious food, but it's actually about the timing of these things. And the big findings that came out of it was like, obviously we've known shift work, that's well documented in the research, that shift workers have higher rates of cardiometabolic conditions like hypertension, so high blood pressure, dysregulated blood sugars, diabetes, stroke. They have a higher risk of certain cancers even. But for the rest of us that are not shift workers, this paper is really clearly outlining that like light at nighttime is incredibly bad for us, and we need appropriate timing of sunlight exposure, and we also need appropriate timing of meals. And something that I thought was really interesting, even this concept of what they call social jet lag. So that's if your sleep-wake timings differ from your weekdays to your weekends, that's what we call social jet lag. And that social jet lag was actually increased with like a higher risk of obesity in a meta-analysis. And it's even like a 1 hour variability in your sleep onset. So that's like maybe some nights you go to bed 1 hour earlier, some nights you go to bed 1 hour later. And that was associated with a 25% increase in obesity. So I think if I'm going to leave anyone with any advice, it's remember that your nervous system loves routine. Same bedtime, same wake time. It loves safety signals, so seeing natural sunlight in the morning, particularly in the first 30 to 60 minutes on waking, and having light breaks throughout the day.
You're like, I made it alive today. I woke up alive, happy.
And having regular meal times, same time each day, and particularly with breakfast, because I know this is a big one for everyone. But again, like this paper has outlined that the people that ate breakfast before 8 a.m. had better cortisol signaling than the people that ate breakfast after 9 a.m. And so then those people that had breakfast after 9 a.m. also had higher rates of weight gain. So
interesting.
We know that when you have your breakfast in the morning, like ideally before 8 a.m., or sorry, we should say really just like in that first like hour, maybe hour and a half after waking, your cortisol signaling is a lot better, a lot more stable throughout the day. You're not staying with a high cortisol level, which affects your blood sugar levels as well.
Yeah, right.
So go to bed and wake up at the same time, get out and see some morning sunlight. Don't wear your sunglasses in the morning, doing yourself a disservice. Have some regular meal times, make sure there's adequate protein, healthy fats and fiber with each meal, and leave some time for fun, play, and joy in your day as well, because those are all anti-inflammatory and activate your vagal tone.
To all those founders out there, you heard it. We need to get sleep. I couldn't tell you what that is.
You need good quality sleep and also the sleep timing.
Yeah, for sure. I had a moment last night where I was sleeping and something happened. I could almost feel like a click. I felt my body rested, Went to bed earlier. I don't know what it was, but just something clicked and I woke up way more refreshed. So awesome. Well, far out. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm sure Chalice may probably become my health liaison as we venture further into, the health world. There's so many people out there that are doing a lot of breakthrough things, and there are going to be people that are making waves, better or worse. sometimes, the positive thing doesn't always get a good reputation at the beginning, but I know there are super impactful people out there. So super stoked to have you on here and looking forward to the next visit and maybe with another guest next time.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks for joining me.
No
Till
worries.
next time. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, man. Yeehaw. Yeehaw. And there we had it, ladies and gentlemen. There we had it. Now I know it's not East Coast Insights, but I'm gonna bang out the end of this episode here with the track because my God, I love it far too much. I'm sure I will get another track under my belt in due time. But
From the harbor
and
to the high rise,
we're gonna be going.
from the boardroom.
It's going to be shifting. It's going to be changing. And there's a lot going on out there right now. Next week, I've got an AI roundtable coming with a few exciting guests. Keep an eye out on Friday. And also the week after that, I'll be talking to Mr. Rory Orr again. We're going to be talking superannuation. How do you keep your money safe? How do you keep it so that we're not going to get lost in the inflation wars, right? So keep an eye on it. Thank you so much. Kenji Shimada, 1,000-year plan. Let's rock and roll. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.